Hello and welcome to Nothing But the Truth. Tuesday's military operation against insurgents sheltering in Myanmar has been acknowledged as a success. But what has come in for criticism is the government's political response. Comments by ministers have upset Myanmar and infuriated Pakistan. And not surprisingly, the Congress party has accused the government of lacking political wisdom. The opposition has alleged ministers are guilty of thoughtless triumphalism, which has undermined India's interests. So today we ask, where does the truth lie? Is the opposition right, or is the government being unfairly attacked? My guests are NDA MP and Akali Dal leader Naresh Gujral and former Foreign Minister and former Congress MP Salman Khurshid. Naresh Gujral, let's start with the question, what did Tuesday's military operation achieve? Friday's Indian Express suggests that its impact might have been less than originally thought. The paper claims only 7 insurgents were killed, less than 12 injured, some 40 cadres left the camp before the strike, and the insurgents who attacked the army crossed the border and returned to their bases. How do you respond to this account, which I suppose is questioning the success of the strike?
Karan, the basic fact remains that this is the stated policy of the NDA, that there will be zero tolerance for any kind of terrorism on our soil. And this is the approach that the new government is following. It's a confident government, it's a determined government which has decided to go after the terrorists if they strike in India. These figures that you are quoting are only quoted by one section of the media, but by and large I will go by what the army says. We trust the Indian army, and I will go by the figures that they have given out.
Now, Salman Khurshid, the success of a military operation surely can't be judged by how many are killed or how many are injured. It has to be judged by the strength of the response, which shows A, India's resolve to defend itself, and B, its determination to punish those who attack either its territory or its soldiers. And as far as that goes, that message went out loud and clear.
Karan, this is a very, very difficult topic. I don't think that we can sit here and judge the exact extent to which the operation was successful, because that's to be left to those who are tactically involved, and that's the army and people who plan it. The details are not given out. I don't think they will have given out details, certainly not in the manner in which it's appeared in the newspapers, one way or the other. Secondly, anything said must not reflect in any way in terms of questioning the capacity, ability and the determination of the army to fulfill a job that they have to do. And therefore it's very difficult to discuss this matter. But having said that the army is equipped and the army is determined, and I think the army deserves our gratitude and acknowledgement for doing these tasks from time to time.
Okay.
I think the manner in which we have made this into a common discourse is sad. It's very sad. It's very sad on behalf of the government, and therefore, consequently, it's unfortunate that we have to question the government's ability to deal with these situations.
Naresh Gujral,
I don't think that.
Let me stop you there, Salman Khurshid. Let me stop you there, Salman Khurshid. Naresh Gujral, the real controversy arises out of the way government ministers have responded. Rajyavardhan Rathore revealed that the Indian army had gone deep into Myanmar without realizing or even perhaps being aware that this would have been a breach of the Myanmar constitution, which explicitly states no foreign troops should be permitted to be deployed in Myanmar. This then invited an angry response from the Myanmar president's office, and the net result was, instead of thanking a country that had been friendly and helpful, Mr. Rathore ended up upsetting its government. Surely that was a silly mistake.
Karan, it's a young, passionate, patriotic, former army person turned minister who has said something which actually was said in a different, I would say he was being over enthusiastic. Yes, it could have been slightly diplomatically inappropriate, but I don't think heavens will fall if a statement was made by a junior minister. So I would not give a lot of attention to that.
You're being very honest. You do accept that it was diplomatically inappropriate and a lack of experience. Is that right, Naresh Gujral?
Well, look, he's a young minister, but he is reflecting the national mood. Please understand that 60% of India, the voters are under the age of 30. They want to see an assertive India. They are fed up with the strikes of the terrorists on our territory.
Okay.
So Mr. Rathore, in a way, is only echoing what young India feels today. Yes, as I said earlier, diplomatically it could be called slightly inappropriate.
Salman Khurshid, let me put it like this. On the other hand, both the Indian media and the Indian public were very proud of the success of this operation, and they were hungry for more details. If the government had not filled in the blanks, it would have been accused of being secretive and non-transparent. Why is that not a good and sufficient explanation for Mr. Rathore's comments and tweets?
Well, let me just say that I am sympathetic with Mr. Rathore. I think he's a young minister, and I think he's a good minister. It wasn't really his duty and his call to be explaining what had happened. I mean, I'm surprised that the PMO that takes credit for everything that happens in the country now didn't put out a formal brief, that there wasn't a government spokesperson who put out a small formal brief echoing largely what the army had said. I thought the army had done a very good briefing. It's not, I don't think one should be blaming Mr. Rathore at all. I think we should be blaming the leadership of Mr. Rathore that obviously has slipped up very badly. They should have handled it, and then Mr. Rathore could just have echoed what they said. But I think the fault lies there rather than with the young minister.
In other words, the fault, you're saying, Salman Khurshid, lies with those who directed Mr. Rathore to do this briefing. It lies with his seniors, his bosses in government. He's just the fall guy.
Well, I mean, I hope that he won't be a fall guy. I mean, let him do his job that he's cut out to do. But I think that it was a serious enough matter to be handled at a much higher level, and that the briefing, as you think, should have been justifiably given to the media and to the people of the country, should have come from a more authoritative level, where one couldn't say that this is a new person, this is a young person, this is an enthusiastic person. I don't think you've got to give these kind of explanations when something very serious is being handled, and it was a very serious event, and therefore I imagine that the fault lies really somewhere else.
Now, Naresh Gujral, the second problem is that Mr. Rathore made it seem as if this sort of action had never happened before, and once again he was completely wrong. It happened with Operation Bluebird in 1987, with Operation Golden Bird in 1995, it happened with Operation All Clear under Mr. Vajpayee in 2003, and several times under Dr. Manmohan Singh. In fact, in 2010, the Myanmar government and the Indian government signed an agreement permitting their armies to cross into each other's territories in pursuit of insurgents and criminals. So, in addition to upsetting the Myanmar government, Mr. Rathore has also exaggerated the uniqueness of what happened.
Karan, I said so earlier, he's a young minister, he's a first-time member of parliament. He has just come to politics. He probably doesn't remember the incidents that you've just quoted. But I think this is only a small matter and it shouldn't be really blown out of proportions. The fact is, actions speak louder than the words. And that is what the Prime Minister has also said. He has cautioned his minister, go slow on rhetoric, our actions will speak.
In fact, the truth of the matter, Salman Khurshid, is that there is one very real and credible sense in which the strike that happened on Tuesday is significantly different to any of the earlier strikes. For example, Operation All Clear was being prepared for 2 or 3 months. In this instance, the army just had 72 hours notice. That not only makes what happened on Tuesday different, but also special. Therefore, when Mr. Rathore claims uniqueness, he is right in a sense.
I think that we're stretching that a bit. We don't know how much time is taken by an armed unit to prepare, how much intelligence is gathered for how long, and at what level decisions are taken. These are things that we don't discuss publicly and in the open, except when the head of government thinks that it's important that something should be shared with the people. So I wouldn't want to be drawn into a discussion about that. There are, as you yourself have said, there have been operations in the past, very successful operations, and that's given us an upper hand in the past over extremists. That's the reason why extremists have come to the table to talk, and hopefully in at least in some segments amongst extremists we've made a dent. So I think, as I said right at the beginning, it's a very complex, it's a very difficult area, very difficult subject, and we shouldn't make light of it by making pronouncements over television, which may or may not necessarily be accurate.
Naresh Gujral, for many people, the error made by Mr. Rathore, and made in this instance also perhaps by Prakash Javadekar, which was worse, was the comments he made about how this could be a precedent for what would happen on the western border should Pakistan carry out further terrorist attacks on India. His exact words, I'm quoting Mr. Rathore, was, "This is a message to all nations that harbour any terror intentions, including those on the West." And for many, he made things worse by putting this out as a tweet with the childish hashtag 56-inch rocks. And this brought forth an angry response from Pakistan. It's added fresh tensions to a relationship that was already fraught and tense. And surely that was both unavoidable as well as unnecessary.
Karan, we all know that we need peace in this region. We need to live peacefully with our neighbors. I come from Punjab. I represent a party which rules Punjab. And we have a vested interest in peace. We want to have good relations with Pakistan. We want trade to flourish. We don't want problems there because we have seen what terrorism did to our state in the 80s and 90s, where thousands of young lives were lost. We don't want a repeat of that. So I hope now there will be less of rhetoric. I hope talks will resume with Pakistan. I hope that this news which has been coming of late of ISI again trying to foment problems in Punjab are not true, and I hope Nawaz Sharif would be able to contain the ISI and not have problems again in Punjab.
But I'm intrigued, Naresh Gujral, with the first half of your answer. Are you being critical of Raghavendra Rathore's tweets and comments that this is a message to Pakistan? And are you therefore saying that the tension and the fraught nature of the relationship this has created was avoidable?
Well, I think Pakistan understands our new government's policy very clearly. It's a stated policy that there shall be zero tolerance for terrorism. It's a stated policy that wherever necessary we will be aggressive. But as I said earlier, I hope these things are resolved peacefully and through talks and not through such aggression or talk of aggression, or for that matter these tweets.
Now, the opposite viewpoint, Salman Khurshid, is that many people believe that India needs to send a tough message to Pakistan, and that your government was far too conscious of either international opinion or the need to keep the door open for dialogue ever to say to Islamabad, enough is enough. Mr. Rathore not only said it, he may have infuriated Pakistan in the process, but he's delighted Indian public opinion. That need for toughness was not met by your government. Mr. Rathore met it.
Well, again, without casting any doubts and aspersions on the motives of Mr. Rathore, let me just say this, that there is somewhat of a confused picture about how this government wants to deal with Pakistan. You know, the handshakes and the embraces, then the cancellations of visits, then patting each other's back, etc. I think that doesn't match with the vigorous statements that are made about teaching them a lesson and fixing them and so on. Anybody can do it. We could have done that very easily. We did fight, after all. We did fight them in many fora. But the fact remains that if you have a war with them, you get back and you start talking again. And that time you get somebody else to make you sit down to talk. That's not good for India. So I think a long-term, deep understanding of how we need to deal with Pakistan, in which the nation should be together. I say this very clearly. The political parties across the board must support the government, but the government can expect support only if it shares with the other political parties, including the main opposition, as to what it tends to do.
You're giving a very measured and a very well articulated answer, but are you critical of Raghavendra Singh Rathore's tweets that have taunted Pakistan and got such an angry response, or are you sympathetic and understanding of them? Which of the two is your position?
No, I see between him and Pakistan, I have a very clear choice. I may not agree with what he may have done, the timing and the extent of going as far as he did, but I will support him rather than Pakistan. You can't have me supporting Pakistan, no matter how angry they get.
All right.
We have
that's very different to Anand Sharma, I must point out.
And they have with us.
That's very different to Anand Sharma. That's very different to Anand Sharma.
No. Anand Sharma is talking about the government. You are asking me to talk about an individual minister, and I'm saying that individual minister obviously functions within the contours of what the government lays out for him.
Okay.
But the government, which is led by somebody who seems to project himself as a very strong man, I think is extremely confused and unclear. That's it. So I think the answer lies at the Prime Minister's door, not at the door of a junior minister.
Naresh Gujral, unfortunately the problem is wider and deeper than just the fact that the government and its ministers ended up infuriating Pakistan and upsetting Myanmar. Behind closed doors, the government has leaked practically all the details of what happened. The numbers involved, the time it took, the equipment used, and even, to some people's astonishment, the actual plan and strategy. As a result, Air Chief Marshal Fali Major has told the Economic Times that the government has not only revealed things that should have been kept strictly secret, but in the process it could have either compromised or at least undermined India's ability to do something similar in future. How do you respond to this sort of leaking, which was surely unnecessary?
Karan, I don't have to respond to that. The Prime Minister has already responded, and he has warned his ministers to be careful in the future. He has told them that in future, watch his actions and go easy on rhetoric. And I think that speaks for all of us, that there is no need to elaborate all these things. When you go into details, you always end up saying something that you shouldn't be saying. So yes, to an extent it was inappropriate, but I am sure that they are learning a lesson, and in the future this will not happen.
On the other hand, Salman Khurshid, the truth is that this sort of post-event leaking happens all over the world. Do you remember how quickly and how comprehensively details of America's mission to capture Osama bin Laden became public? In a democracy, this sort of leaking is unavoidable, and it has to be both accepted and understood. And that is the case in India as well.
I'm not quite sure what you mean by leaking. Is leaking a desired thing, or is it undesired thing? Does it happen despite our efforts for it not to happen, or does it happen because we want it to happen? These are very important questions to be answered. Now, I think that there should be a formal briefing at the highest level certainly of at least the senior opposition leaders, particularly those who've handled some of these strategic matters in the past. Now that doesn't happen, and you give out leaks. One day you said we've killed 100, one day you say you killed 7. And if we get into an argument about this, it seems that we are questioning the resolve of the nation to protect itself. That really is a very, very difficult position, and we wouldn't want to do anything that undermines the nation's resolve, and therefore the responsibility rests entirely with the head of the government in not having handled this matter properly. And just telling his ministers, stay away from rhetoric is not good enough, because the ministers are only copying his style.
Gentlemen, let's widen our discussion one little bit further in the limited time left to us. Naresh Gujral, this incident for many people has drawn attention to the way the Modi government keeps repeatedly and deliberately taunting Pakistan. The Prime Minister goes to Bangladesh, and from Dhaka he's critical of Pakistan. The Defence Minister says Pakistan ko mirchi lag gayi, and then separately says Pakistan is rattled. Mr. Javadekar keeps warning Pakistan there's a new government in power in Delhi. And as a result, Pakistanis are now saying India is the bigger and more powerful country militarily, economically, politically. Does Mr. Modi's government and do his ministers have a complex about Pakistan? Why do they keep taunting the smaller country? How do you respond to that sort of voice and opinion from Pakistan?
Karan, it is a fact that of late disturbing news has been coming of ISI again trying to foment problems in Punjab apart from Kashmir. The dreadest terrorist Tara, who was recently brought back from Thailand, he has revealed details of how ISI is targeting certain politicians in Punjab. We also know, our intelligence also has told us to be careful. Now, obviously, the Prime Minister and the ministers have to send a message to Pakistan that please do not try and misadventure again in India. We have suffered before, but this time, if they were to indulge in this kind of misadventure, I think we will deal with it more strongly.
What you're hearing, Salman Khurshid, from Naresh Gujral is that what I call taunts and jibes are actually responses to intelligence information which is worrying and disconcerting about ISI's potential involvement in Punjab and, of course, let's not forget Kashmir. Do you accept that explanation, that these aren't taunts and jibes, these are strategic responses to intelligence coming in?
Well, let me just say two things. The adage that sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never harm me. I'm not quite sure that these words are going to be harming anybody in Pakistan. There could be obviously very reliable intelligence coming in, and I think we should be extremely vigilant and extremely careful in responding to that intelligence. We've suffered in the past, as Naresh has said, we've suffered terribly in the past, and we can't afford to suffer again. But are we dealing with Pakistan in a manner in which we should be dealing with Pakistan? It seemed for a while that the Prime Minister there in Pakistan wanted to reach out, but have we behaved in a manner in which we've only kicked the ball back into the ISI court, and the people who are not friends of Pakistan trying to push him into a corner? I think that this is a deeper game that we need to understand. There are no quick fixes to this issue of Pakistan, and I think the biggest mistake this government has made is to assume that there is a quick fix to Pakistan. There isn't. It's a very complicated game.
Very quickly, gentlemen, I'm going to ask you for brief answers to my last question to each of you. The real question asked, Naresh Gujral, is that many people have this apprehension that Mr. Modi's policy towards Pakistan lacks clarity, maybe it lacks depth of strategic thinking. Sometimes people say there's confusion about what he wants, he's not clear. How do you respond to that belief? It may not be factually correct in your eyes, but the mere fact that people believe there's lack of clarity surely should worry you. How do you respond to that?
Look, Mr. Modi made a beginning by inviting Mr. Nawaz Sharif for his swearing in. That is how he extended a hand of friendship. He has made it very clear that we want very good relations with Pakistan, we want trade to grow, we want relations to expand. But the fact of the matter is, ISI and army is outside the control of the Prime Minister in Pakistan. And I think these strong messages, both from the Prime Minister and from the Defence Minister, they are meant for the ISI and for the Pakistan army.
You know, Salman Khurshid, you could say that Mr. Modi is trying to do two things together, to be tough vis-a-vis the Pakistan army and the Pakistan ISI, whilst also keeping the door open for dialogue with the political government and for trade relations. And that's not an easy tightrope to walk. Many people believe your government didn't even attempt to walk it. Now, if in the process of walking this tightrope, Mr. Modi occasionally stumbles, that calls for our understanding, not criticism. How do you respond to that?
Well, it certainly deserves understanding. A word that was not familiar to them when we were trying to deal with Pakistan in a very clever, sensitive, and a very organized, scientific manner. We didn't get this understanding from them, and now they expect understanding from us. We will still extend understanding as long as they are able to show to us that what they are doing has some intelligence in it, it has some system and some science in it. It can't be that they do some ad hocism and expect that we will appreciate their ad hocism. That's not acceptable.
All right, gentlemen, let's leave it there. My thanks to both of you for joining me for this face-off on Nothing But the Truth. And let's hope nothing but the truth is what emerged from it. Goodbye. Good night.